I think we're going to talk about campaigns that I've run that actually quite enjoyed doing. Good, the bad, the detail, all of it. Let's think about this. Where to start? Quick and dirty. Okay, we'll go look at email to start with. Quick and dirty campaigns, if you've got stock, anything that's with aged stock you can use. That can be aged stock that is now no longer available. It could be just stuff you've got sat on the shelf and it's still current, but you need to free up some cash. So the easiest way of doing this is to do a very simple email, pretty much text only. These are the things we've got, this is how much it's going to cost, and these are the number of units we've got available. You send that out to your database. Now you can get a little bit more involved with that, and like we did, we targeted it to the people that have bought those products or similar before. And on a normal run, within about half an hour of that email going out, we'll have probably a dozen to 20 people come back to us and go, yes, we want this, that, and the other, which, given the audience was only about 1,000 people, getting 20 responses is quite reasonable. You're looking at around a 2% conversion rate. And now that's conversion to sales as well. And so it's well worth doing. Those emails, they cleared down stock. They generated cash, which then meant that it wasn't just sat on the shelf. They still generated some profit as well, which is obviously quite key. But with aged stock, if it's on the shelf for too long, it's just costing you money anyway. So sometimes it is a case of just get rid of it for whatever you can get for it. Now, what else on the email front are? So there was a certain animal place that we did a data migration for. Now, email data migration was pretty straightforward. You download the database and upload it to the new one, unless you want any sort of behavior and engagement information to come across with it. If you want that sort of data, then you have to start pulling all of the data through, so all of the campaign history. Then you have to tie it all back to the master database. Who's done what emails have they received, what they've engaged with, what they clicked on, how long have they been on there, how many emails have they opened. And you start having to build up some sort of scoring profile for each one. Then you can start going, actually, what have they engaged with? Have they regularly engaged with certain features? In this case, we're able to actually put together profiles of people and say, yes, these people are engaged with this type of animal, this type of experience, and we could build up much more advanced segments within the data. Now, it got to the point where you could actually email them with such a razor-sharp message that, one, the open rate was almost guaranteed to be in the higher end, sort of 70 to 8%. And when we started running the tests with it, it was. And then also the click-through rates on it go through the roof because it's highly relevant. Not just personal, but relevant to the person that is receiving it, because it's talking to them about something they have told you they're interested in without actually telling. You're using their behaviours to conclude that. What else on the we're looking at email was a classic saying Viagra by email, which technically you shouldn't be able to do because it's a spam word. Let's look at paid ads. Okay, so paid ads are obviously an expensive way to set fire to your marketing budget, and if they're done wrong, they will be. They'll literally just burn through cash. Now, that in itself is a problem because most companies don't have an abundance of cash. We did some work with a very small company who their budget was, saying their budget was £100 was probably a stretch for them at the time. But when it returned £900, that then starts to become quite a viable campaign for them. So then they tripled their budget, so it was then £300, and they started generating closer to £3,000. Yes, we're talking about sort of 900% returns, which those are good. Those are solid returns, and that's what you want to be seeing. Google will tell you that on paid ads they want to see a 400% return to justify a campaign. And that only works if your margins are greater than 25%. In some cases, companies that don't have those sort of margins, we see some people that have got margins of 2 to 3% on some products. So why would you spend the money on driving traffic to those things through ads? Well, you would if the volume of sales is high enough, but if they're not, then you're just not going to get anything from it. We did some work with LinkedIn ads. We've done various campaigns with LinkedIn ads. There was one in particular where we were literally just tasked with brand awareness, and the budget was sensible, looking at about £4,500 a month just to be visible, and T was through the roof. So that was really positive. The other side of LinkedIn ads you could be looking at is the retargeting side, where you're actually only sending messages out to people who have completed and done certain actions in certain places. Now with that, we've done something in the past where for every £100 we're spending, we're generating 10 to 15 leads. That's qualified leads at that point. So we're looking at a reasonable sort of 10, so between £7.50 and £1 a lead, which if you convert a third of those, is a very good cost per acquisition. One company who's actually running Facebook ads. Facebook ads are, again, a really good way to set fire to money if you don't know what you're doing, or the experience as a whole is. Now, their ads were running specifically for attraction. We took one look at them and started questioning things as, okay, the ads are actually performing very well. They've got high click-through rates, they've got low cost per click, and the ads themselves look pretty reasonable. What we did from there, though, is we then started looking at the website because they were saying they weren't getting any inquiries at all, and everything was being driven to the website for inquiry. So we looked at the website data, and actually what was happening was they had a bounce rate of about 95% for Facebook ads. And that's the alarm bells are ringing then, because they're either landing them on the wrong page or the site as a whole was off. So we looked at the page that they're landing on. The page they're landing on was relevant to the ads, so that should have been quite reasonable. But then the whole site, we started digging into everything in much greater detail. And actually what we were finding was most of the site didn't seem to matter where the traffic was coming from. The bounce rates were through the roof. So there was obviously something wrong there. Either that was misreported by Google, or there was a problem with the site. Now, given that they were getting 0 inquiries, then that was quite worrying. So we actually paused their ads for them and then phoned them, because when they're spending £100 a day on ads that aren't doing anything, it needs something done fairly quickly. Otherwise, you're just wasting more and more and more money. That's something that we do. If we see something's going wrong, we'll just stop it. We're not going to talk to you about it before we stop it. We'll stop it and then we'll talk to you about it, because the thing is, we don't want you wasting your money on things if it's not going to result in ultimately the end goal, whatever that goal may be. What else have we done that's been particularly fun? Okay, so one of my own pet projects was the gluten-free beer subscription service. Now, we managed to get that up off the ground. £3,500, £4,000 was spent on getting it up and running. That included testing in all the samples and test shipping and stock. Now, we launched that, did the test runs during the summer, and then launched the service in August. By December, we had managed to make enough profit to achieve. We're down to £1 left that needed to be covered in terms of its costs, so that was really good. And then we hit a problem. Then we hit a major problem. The major problem was actually logistics. We're getting more and more damaged stock come in. Now, we could sell the damaged stock, and we basically did it as a broken biscuit style campaign. We've got all this stock, but we're not going to sell it at a profit. We literally just sold it at cost plus the shipping, and that was it, just to get it back off the shelf again, so that we didn't have cash tied up in it. And that's what we're also talking about with the age stock as well. It's not having cash tied up in stock that you can't. So we started doing some more testing with the shipping options, and actually what it turned out was the shipping methods, no matter how we package things, shipping was poor. So we're just getting more and more damaged stuff going out, and we're having to issue more and more refunds, which we obviously didn't want to do. So we actually pulled the plug in February, stopped the business, which was a shame because we actually managed to grow it as a subscription. It was now covering itself, and as single one-off purchases, that's where we were making the profit. And like I said, sunk £3,500–4,000 of my own money into it, and it got to the point where I'd managed to get most of that money back out again. I had about £450–500 left that it owed me, which was quite reasonable, especially considering the time frame. We ran paid ads on that, which worked. We ran email campaigns, which worked. We ran organic social on that, which worked. And with the organic social, one of the key elements that actually made the biggest impact wasn't posting on our page, because actually that does very little, especially when you've got a small audience. What we did was actually we used Facebook groups, and we joined a lot of Facebook groups for celiacs and people that went on a gluten-free diet. We also joined quite a few that were around the vegan communities as well. So we joined those. We started engaging and talking to people, and when people started asking questions about particular products, we could point them in the direction of our services. And in general, people were very keen on the idea. We had a few queries over price point because our price point was quite high. Our price point was high because our costs to source the materials, the items, were high because gluten-free stuff costs a lot, vegan stuff costs a lot. After the first couple of months, we ran a new round of surveying as well, and asked people what they actually wanted with the snack side of things. And what we found were people weren't really fussed by the meat-based snacks. They were more interested in the vegetarian and vegan ones. So we dropped the meat-based snacks and had that as an option that people could actually just buy a meat-based snack box, and focused on ones that were vegetarian and vegan. That then opened up a lot more options for us on the vegan side, but it also allowed us to explore more on the cheese-based side with vegetarian. And that, again, it was all about iterating, and we learnt a lot with that. And that was in part why we did it, was because it's a learning experience, and that was very much B2C, whereas most of our time was spent on B2B. I had a wonderful experience with Axon Rides, and what they had was nothing. They had a storage unit for looking of product and a logo, pretty much, and that was it. So what we had to do was we had to create an entire brand, a product range, all of the assets, and we had 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, we turned around their website with the help of a specialist Shopify developer. We created press releases, social posts, website content. We did a photo shoot of the product. For the product, we did a lifestyle product shoot as well, which was actually in London, which we got chased out of various places in Canary Wharf, which is obviously always fun. Beg forgiveness rather than asking permission. And by the time we hit the 3-week point, everything was ready to launch. That was our remit. Get it ready to launch it. Now, the thing is, we didn't just launch it. We then ended up taking on their marketing for the next year and a quarter, in fact. So at that point, we started running started running all their paid ad channels. We ran their email marketing, ran their email outreach for the B2B side of things. We worked with a specialist sales enablement team who were focused on B2B and building the relationships up there. So we were targeting them from one side. They were targeting the same people from the sales side of things and building the relationships so we could maximize on touch points. By the end of the summer, so September time, we also went to fully charged and took the product there. Now we're that way. Then we're actually doing face-to-face sales, potential customers. People were really enjoying it. We're doing product demos, and it was an easy sell because people actually they were there because they were interested in electronic vehicles. They could get their hands on it, and as soon as they got their hands on the product, they lapped it up. With that, we were able to do. We got into significant loss in that weekend. Significant leads were generated in that weekend as well for both B2B and B2C. By the end of September, there were 68 shops in the UK that were actually selling the product. They had their own direct-to-consumer channel as well, and then later on in the year, they actually managed to get into one of the largest sports e-commerce platforms in the world. What else did we do? Oh, and with them, we also directed art-directed photo shoots. We coordinated video shoots. We handled other business-related issues as well, as we were seen as more of as advisors on that as well. So we talk about Five and Bike all the time. Five and Bike was a multi-channel outreach campaign that took in email, direct mail, and LinkedIn outreach, very targeted, and you'll see the testimonials in various places, but £3,500 went in, 84,000 was directly traceable back to this campaign, came out. It works, and it works because it's hugely targeted, it's highly relevant, and very personal. Those sort of campaigns, they're not light to run when it comes down to actual costs, because there's quite a lot of moving parts, but they do work. And if you've got a particularly niche service or a niche market you're trying to service, then that would be definitely a benefit to run that sort of campaign. Magic Leap 2 is a mixed reality headset from Magic Leap. Now, we're brought in by MPH Group to help them with their taking it to market in the UK and Europe. Now, we were brought in almost at the 11th hour to do this because the product was meant to be going live in the September. We were brought in the July. Now, 3 months to do a product launch is fine, especially when the manufacturer has to do most of the work. Now, the problem was, at that point, the manufacturer said everything was being held off. But as the dates got closer and closer, we started to ramp up the attempt. We managed to get momentum that was needed. We were doing virtual product demos, email campaigns. We didn't do any paid on that because we couldn't. We took it to a construction event and actually did it as a floor walk with one of the sales team, and that generated lots of interest and inquiries. By the time the product was ready to go live and the pre-launch was done, the pre-launch sold a significant number of units in pre-launch, which is really positive, which meant that the market was actually keen on the product, which shouldn't really be a surprise. It is a solid product. Yeah, and that was that. So we did, and that was yet another product launch.